What is going on, YouTube people? Neo Cards and Comics here. If I sound a little different, I'm on the road. The CSG news dropped at the worst time humanly possible. I was in the middle of traveling to Shipshewana, Indiana for the card show and the trade night tonight, card show tomorrow night, or tomorrow during the day. And the news dropped while I was in the middle of nowhere, Indiana. I thought about pulling over on the side of the road and recording something real quick, but I figured I'd just wait till I got to the hotel room and do it semi-properly. So I'm on my backup microphone and on my laptop, so things look and sound a little bit different. That's why. We've been speculating about this one for a long time. I'm not surprised by this news. We obviously knew that this was going to be coming at some point in time. The more surprising thing to me was the change in the grading scale. So what are we talking about? CSG, famous green label, Peyton Manning forehead label, very nice slabs, but terrible label, have finally decided to make the switch that a lot of people have been clamoring for. You can see it on the screen here. We have an example of what that new label looks like. My opinion, it is non-offensive. I've seen a lot of people saying and I haven't looked at a ton of other social media. I watched Sports Cards Anonymous' video real quick on the drive. I listened to it while I was driving. And I saw a lot of people in his comments, and I've seen this other places as well, that says this label looks kind of like GMA. My general take on this has been all CSG needed was a decent label. They have, and I've commented on this before, and I've owned a CSG slab. I had a Baker Mayfield RPA eye black thing for a hot minute in a CSG slab. And I've always said, and I stand by it, from the neck down, they had the best slab in the market. It felt super sturdy and was the clearest slab I have ever had in my hand. And I've had all the major grading companies and some of the not so major grading companies in my hand. So the fact that the label, while it's not like reinventing the wheel, it's very non-offensive. To me, that's fine to go with the fact that their slab is that good. So that's my general take on this overall. Now, an interesting thing, which I'll give them credit. They did a good job at the way they designed this. The label actually is not any smaller. It's the same size. But the way they designed it, when you look at it on screen there, it doesn't jump out at you like it did before because they put that black border on it. It draws your eye in to the tag where it lists the name of the card and the grade that it was in. So, to me, I think they did a good job on that. Now, a lot of people will say, well, why wouldn't you just make the label smaller? I get why they wouldn't do that, because then you have to change the entire case dimensions around, and that means retooling all your machines for encapsulation, how these things are made, the whole 9 yards. That's a whole other additional expense, and I could see why they would not want to do that. So I think this is a happy medium to trick the eye into thinking the label's smaller, even though it's actually not. I'll be very curious to see one of these in hand once they come out. So that's the label, that's the look. I think it looks fine. Once again, it's not like reinventing the wheel, but I will say I like it better than the SGC label, which I've never really liked the SGC label. It's worlds better than their old label. Beckett's label is nice. It's kind of a dinosaur with the weird small print, the metal stuff with the perforated edges, and it slides out of place and all that. So I really don't know how to compare it against that one. But of the four main ones, it's fine. It's probably right in the I don't really care, this doesn't bother me level of like a PSA label. I will say I definitely like it better than an SGC label. And the black is going to be the black and the silver gunmetal gray, whatever it is there in the middle, in general is going to be pretty non-offensive when it comes to matching up with most cards. See, there's a little hint of it looks like yellow at the top there, which is fine because it's not overpowering at all. It's very small and it just makes the name of the grading company pop out a little bit. They also picked a really good card to match this with because it's kind of a weird color match with the CSG name and logo with the Brady Bowman chrome down there on the bottom. So smart move by them for picking this particular card. Now, let's get into the second half of this, which I think is actually the biggest news besides the label redesign, because we all kind of knew that was coming. And that is the fact that they changed their grading scale. This is the part that I did not see coming. I am glad that they did this, but I am surprised that they actually did it. The first thing is you don't see subgrades on this label, and that is because subgrades are going away. They are no longer going to do subgrades. They said, one, it'll make them a more efficient company, and two, not that many people requested subgrades with their orders. They give the percentage in the article here, but it was pretty low. I think a lot of that had to do not so much that people didn't want the subgrades, it's just that the type of cards people were sending to CSG did not make sense to pay extra for the subgrades because people were sending them the bargain basement stuff, like your absolute super low end. For higher end, nicer stuff, I think the subgrades still made sense. But on that ultra super low end stuff, if you were even going to bother to send it, people were not getting subgrades on that stuff. So that could skew the data a little bit. I get a lot of people like subgrades. It feels like the more old school people really like subgrades, but I mean, the hobby has definitely spoken in regards to subgrades and how it carries weight on the secondary market. You know, BGS had subgrades as the subgrade king, and they got blown by PSA, no subgrades. SGC caught them and is neck and neck with them, no subgrades. CSG comes out with subgrades, and they comp terribly on the resale market, and most people don't even get the subgrades on the cards to begin with. So there's this vocal minority that loves subgrades, but it feels like the majority either just does not care or doesn't actually want them. The other thing, and I won't quote this directly, but you know, Peter from SGC was asked about this on Off Center with Brad and Dustin a few weeks ago about subgrades, and he gave the best answer I've ever heard on it, and basically said if you're evaluating a card on 4 separate categories, you're leaving a lot on the table. He said they evaluate on like 64 metrics, so he would need like 60 some subgrades to make that accurate. The other bad thing about the subgrades with BGS is that people game the system. You know, when you look at like gem rates numbers, BGS by far has the highest percentage of cards in gem mint grade, which is a BGS 9.5. The reason why is because people can cheat the system a little bit, that if you have a soft corner, you have a bad edge, you're slightly off-centered, you could snag a 9 on that and still eke out a 9.5 if the rest of the card looks good. So you get a 9.5, but with any other grading company, that's probably a 9. So it allowed you to kind of sneak things in on a min gem to get a BGS 9.5. And then that brings in the whole, you know, the min gem, gem mint, true gem plus, min gem plus nonsense that gets involved when you have subgrades on these cards in regards to when you go to resell them and, you know, how you're going to kind of hash through all that minutia. So I get why they went away from it, and I am perfectly fine with it. But the answer that Peter gave on subgrades I thought was one of the best answers I've heard. So let's flip over. What did they actually do for the grading scale? It's SGC's grading scale. That's exactly what it is. They have a perfect 10 grade. Think of that like an SGC gold label. They have a gem mint 10, just like PSA, SGC. They are going with a 9.5 mint plus like SGC, and then it just basically follows every other grading company's. You know, you have a mint 9, an 8.5, an 8, so on and so forth on the way down. So they will essentially be following the SGC path. They will have an above 10 grade. 10 will be their primary gem mint grade, and then you'll have the 9 and 9.5 kind of battling it out. So them going to this grading scale brings up a couple questions, and there's kind of an elephant in the room that we need to discuss when it comes to CSG. First off, curious for your thoughts and opinions on both the label and the subgrades going away. Happy, mad, sad, don't care. You know, how are you guys and girls feeling about the label and the grading scale change? Let me know in the comments down below. So circling back to this, the elephant in the room here is that CSG has a reputation for grading too hard. I've talked about this a bunch on various live streams on my channel and other people's channels. People don't want the toughest grading in the world. People want fair grading. And the general consensus seemed to be was that SGC, it didn't seem like they graded fair. A lot of cards got 9s. There was very few 9.5s handed out. And in the past, 9.5 was their gem mint grade. So to me, the interesting part here is now that the subgrades are gone and they're grading on, I'm going to call it a more loosey-goosey system. Because, you know, when you have the subgrades, it kind of dictates you to putting a card into a certain bucket one way or another. Do they lax up a little bit? Surface was one of the things they were exceptionally brutal on. to the point that it was like they're dinging you for stuff that, you're looking at on 15x magnification. Do we really care about that? Like, you know what I mean? Like, the eye appeal to me matters more. As long as there's not like a major dent in it or something, who cares? So how does, and I'll be very curious, and once again, GemRate will have this data most likely. What does it look like? What does their gem rate look like? What does their gem mint 10 grade percentage look like compared to 9.5s and 9s? And how does that stack up against like an SGC? Because that's going to be the one that they're compared to the most because they have identical scales. And then, you can compare it against PSA as well. So to me, that's going to be the interesting part. I am curious, if you were a CSG truther and been in since the ground floor, how are you feeling now with your CSG green labels and this whole change up? Do you feel betrayed? Do you feel okay? I think it's a $5 reholder fee and all that. Curious for your thoughts on how you guys are feeling today. The last thing I want to close on is now where does CSG kind of fall into place? The quick and dirty answer is we don't know yet. So we're going to get in the speculation town. Obviously, comps on the current cards were already trash, and we'll see where things go from here. Here's how I would treat them. They have $12 bulk submissions, which is the cheapest in the industry by far. I don't know what the turnaround times is off the top of my head. Right now, to me, for the ultra low end, they are now the go-to. If you have a low end card, and once again, the comps are going to dictate some of this, so don't go hog wild. See how the market kind of plays itself out. But if you have a lower end card and you want it slab to flip, if you want to work that low end game, I think CSG is your play. The $12 grading fee, if it comes back a CSG 10, and assuming you're sending the right stuff, you should be able to do pretty okay on that stuff. I think what ends up happening is if the new label and new, grading scale catch on, I think this has a much larger impact on SGC than it does PSA. PSA has such a stranglehold on the market when it comes to resale value. I don't see that changing anytime soon at all. But I can see CSG closing ground on SGC. A lot of people go to SGC because they like the tux and because they like the customer service and they like the fact that it's just not PSA. But a lot of people that use them or are hesitant to use them do not like the slab and do not like the label. CSG slab blows everybody else out of the water, and the label is indifferent to above average, which to me already puts it above SGC. And people do take CSG's graders like as legitimate graders. This isn't like an HGA situation or a GMA or whatever. So I think this has more of a market impact on SGC as a company than it does PSA, at least in the short and medium term. And then the market's going to market, to steal that stupid phrase, and we'll kind of see what happens here. And does comps close? Do they hang in the SG? My guess is that they end up an SGC 10, a CSG 10, and a BGS 9.5, assuming random ultra modern prism parallel and not something super crazy, all sell for around the same amount of money, give or take 10%. And then a PSA 10 is still, 20 to 40% above, depending on what the market does. But I think CSG has a shot to put a chokehold on the low end market and then make strides against SGC, especially given the pricing difference. So once again, curious for your thoughts and comments down below. I need to get this edited and uploaded, and I have a trade night to get to and a show tomorrow. So we will catch you guys and girls on the next one. Peace.